Again for joining us here today. We are going to be talking about retainers within Function Point. It looks like our sign-ins are slowly starting to trickle off there, so how about we get started? So today, again, I know I've already said it, but we're going to be talking about retainers. My name is Sophia Wilson. I am a Customer Success Manager here at Function Point, and it is a lovely pleasure to have Mark Wilson, Senior Customer Success Manager here, being my co-pilot today. I know that all of you are probably used to hearing his voice while attending our webinars, but I'm lucky enough to be able to give this presentation for you today. Mark, are you able to hear me okay?
Hey, you sound okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thanks again for joining and being my co-pilot.
Yeah, no problem. You know, something I always point out because people always wonder. We do share a last name, but Sophie and I aren't related. But I'm sure you can find a relation if you go far enough back. You know, a couple hundred years ago in Scotland, I'm sure there's a crossover, but purely coincidental.
Yeah, however, you know, he does tend to tease me like I'm his little sister sometimes. So
this is true.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So our agenda today, again, talking about retainers. So we're going to start off with just a good, simple retainer overview, the different types of retainers that we see our clients using within Function Point. Then we're going to go into the different types, so managing simple retainers. So these are the types of retainers that just require one singular job within Function Point. We'll go into that in more detail shortly. And then the other form of simple retainer, having a monthly job, so a job that represents each month of the year, and again, time tracking and invoicing from that. And then we will follow that with managing our robust retainers. So these are retainers where you could have multiple deliverables within this retainer that your client is requesting. So again, we will review all of this in greater detail. And then we actually have a preview of what's coming. You know, our product team has been working really, really hard on some very fun updates that are coming. And actually, Mark will be the one presenting that to us. And I know I always love to see what's coming. It always really excites me. So I hope that everyone else is looking forward to seeing that. Questions are welcomed and encouraged throughout this webinar. Mark will be answering all of our questions in the background as I'm presenting, and of course anything that he can answer through the questions box he will, but if there's anything he also feels would be important to show directly on screen as a presentation to everyone, I will be asking him regularly if there's anything that we should share with the whole group. So please do not hesitate to send in your questions, and of course if there isn't anything we can answer, we will reach out to you outside of the webinar to handle any questions or concerns you have on a one-on-one basis. Learning at FP. So, of course, there's always the opportunity to continue learning throughout Function Point. It's actually directly in your Function Point system. You'll see the question mark up in the top right-hand corner of your system. This is a great way to reach out to anyone here at FP. You can reach our support team with any of their questions, as well as a lot of our skill development tools and resources. So one of our colleagues works tirelessly on some really great documentation that you can get at any point that you might need. As well, we do record all of the webinars here, so if, say, you have to jump out a little bit early or you find something particularly beneficial, you can share that with the rest of your team at a later time. So all of that will be recorded. Next, so we do hold these webinar series pretty regularly. We are coming up on the end of the current webinar series that we are in. This is actually the last one. However, we will be starting a new series starting on June 1st, and I don't know if we've completely decided on all of the topics for that new series yet. So if you have any recommendations or requests, please let us know. We do want to know and hear from you on what specifically you would like to be learning in Function Point. So please send that through, anything that you would like, to success@functionpoint.com, and we will be posting that curriculum shortly. All right, great. So let's get started. So let's start with the retainer overview today. So the retainers that we most regularly see from our clients within Function Point is either professional service retainers. So this can actually be produced through our simple retainers that I will show you shortly. So this type of retainer would be a set amount billed on a monthly basis. So you have an agreed upon amount with your client that you will invoice them for either at the beginning or the end of the month, depending on your agreement with them. This retainer would have usually a singular or multiple services that are provided, that are ongoing, and do not have a defined start or end date. For example, SEO, PR, or media management. So something that you're just constantly working on, usually in the background for them, that you're just constantly doing. This is one of our main retainers. The next one is a deliverable-based retainer, also what we like to call our robust retainers. I think Mark accidentally said that in a webinar a couple of years ago, and it kind of stuck, and we all tend to, we like to use it. This one is also a set billed amount on a monthly basis. So again, agreed upon amount with your client that you will always bill them every month. However, the difference with this one is that they could request any type of deliverable scope of work at any point for you. There may not be a defined start or end date. It's something that could go over multiple months, or it could be within one specific month as well. Examples of these are websites, brochures, or events. Something I always do like to kind of mention when it comes to retainers, you know, retainers are pretty regular within your business processes. However, please always review them with your clients at the end of every year. You know, that is the beauty of being able to use Function Point and seeing if you're being profitable. And you might realize that you need to start charging your client more. So please review them regularly with your clients and maybe reassess that at the end of every year. All right, so now everyone should be able to see within my Function Point system, and we're going to start looking at some of the simple retainers to start. I guess before I get started, Mark, were there any questions around those definitions before I get started?
No, well, one question came in, but it was a little bit ahead. I did provide an answer as to our client Samantha. I might prompt you a little bit later when we get to the topic, just to touch on it. But nothing else for now.
Awesome. I'm intrigued. I look forward to this, Samantha. Okay, awesome. So what we're going to look at first is managing simple retainers within Function Point. And the one we're going to start with is with a single job. So just for time's sake today, we have already created these different job examples within my demo system, just so we can be more visual today and not spending a lot of time building them all out. So if you have any questions about building them out specifically, don't hesitate to reach out to us outside of the webinar. However, we should be able to go through it today. So with this job, we've got our client, McDonald & Company. We have an SEO retainer with them, and our agreement with them is that we're going to constantly be working on their SEO throughout the month, and we're going to be charging them $2,000 a month to be working on this. So through the job and your estimate, you'll actually put your estimated amount as that agreed upon amount. So we've got our $2,000 as our estimated amount here. We expect that to take 20 hours a month of our time to be working on this. And then as your staff are working on this SEO, they will be tracking time directly to this job. So the only thing that I will point out is that in my demo system, this job has already been open for a couple of months. So you'll see that our actual hours are double what the estimated quantity is right now. So right now it looks like we've made no money on this. It's actually a little concerning. However, what you need to recognize is that because this job is open all year round, the actuals will always be growing. So as you're a few months in, you will see that the actual hours are quite a bit larger than the estimated hours, but that is easily looked at a later time. So as every month, when you're wanting to see how profitable you were during a specific month, you're actually able to use our filter by date option up here. So let's actually take a look at last month. We'll check out to see how we did in April. So we'll filter this by April 1st and April 30th, there we go, and filter by date. So you'll actually see within the month of April that we had our estimated 20 hours for our $2,000 that we would charge our client. However, we spent 24 hours working on this job this month. So our actuals were $2,400, but we still only invoiced them for $2,000, so we actually had a loss of $400 on the job for this month. So this is how this job financials page for this retainer is really beneficial for you to see if it's been profitable or not. So for the month that you are currently in, you may want to, well, let's filter by the month that we're in, May 1st, tab over to today. So you'll see now for the month of May that we've got our estimated 20 hours. We've already spent 16 hours on this, and because we still have just over a week left of this month, it's possible that you might go over that agreed upon amount, and it could be a loss. However, at this point, because you've only spent 16 hours, you've invoiced for $2,000 already, you are having a profit of $400 at this point. So right now, it's looking pretty good for this coming month. And then, of course, you would just continue filtering by this for every month to be able to compare everything. Again, depending on your agreement with your client, you may invoice at the beginning or at the end of the month just by coming up here to add new, add invoice, invoicing by your estimated amount, and just sending that off to the client. All right, so that is a pretty simple overview of our simple singular job retainer. Mark, is there anything that you would like to add to this, or do we have any questions that you think would be good to address on screen?
Yeah, it may not really need to be shown because you're kind of gonna get to this, and I'm gonna hit send on this answer here. But there was a question. It came from Michelle. Sorry for pronouncing that wrong. They were asking, will this cause the job to be showing over budget on things like dashboard tiles? And the answer to that is yes. Any retainer job that you manage like this is going to show over budget on anything that you look at it for that doesn't have a date range. So of course, anything that has a date range will show correctly, whether it be something like a profit analysis report, work out great. EAI report, other financial reports, anything with a date range is going to work out just fine. Anything without a date range, of course, it will show over budget, and that's something that's important to keep in mind. Now, managing the retainer this way allows you to not need to open up and close a new job for each month in order to specifically show each month staying within budget amongst all tile views. And that is something that we're going to show as a different option in a little bit. So it's just something to keep in mind. This simple retainer option is a lot easier to manage on a month-to-month basis because you simply just have the job open and you bill it every single month. The drawback is that, yes, on some tiles it will show as over budget, and you'll have to keep that in mind when you're looking at those. But we're, of course, Sophia, you're going to show another option in just a minute as well.
Awesome. That was a really good question. Thank you for bringing that up. And of course, I always love hearing just Mark's little additions. We do work as a team, and we remind each other of things that we may have forgotten. So thank you so much for all of that, Mark. So the next one we're going to look at now is, again, still a simple retainer while managing that with monthly jobs. So this again, it does touch on what Mark was just saying that I'm going to show. This is a way of being able to show all of your jobs for each month, and it's just a different view of being able to use it, and it will help with reporting to show that you aren't over budget for specific jobs. So with this one, we actually set it up within a project, and again, I've already had this pre-set up within my system so that just for time's sake. And when you come underneath the job financials, you'll see that we have the same agreement with our North Shore Auto Group here as we did with McDonald & Co. on the last page. This is a social media management retainer, and it is 20 hours, $2,000 a month. But the way this one is set up is that we've created a job for every single month. Now, this is a nice way of being able to have an overview of the entire year at a glance. The only downside is that it does require just a little bit more management on your part. So you will be needing to create every single job, of course, at the beginning of the year so that you can view it, as well as still manage the job statuses. So making sure that you're staying on top of closing out jobs that you've already completed, keeping jobs in the future still on hold, and making sure that the appropriate month that you're in is currently open so that you can invoice from it and your staff can continue to track time directly to it. So you'll see here on this page that this is our job financials page for the Project North Shore social media retainer. We've got January here. You'll see that, again, with same as the last page, we had the agreed upon 20 hours for the $2,000. However, you'll also see that we went over by 4 hours in January, so that after invoicing for only $200, we did have a loss of $520. You'll see that that is the exact same within February, 24 actual hours with a loss of $400. I might need to look at, oh, this is probably based off of who was tracking time and their specific rates within the system. That's why these actuals would be slightly different. You'll also see then with March, we actually finally made a bit of a profit off of this retainer. We had that 20 hours at the $2,000 agreed, but we only spent 18 hours working on this retainer in March. So that's awesome. We had a profit of $110, which is great. Again, April looks like we went over again, and now within May, we are currently at 12 hours, still with just over a week where you might need to be checking in on this or not really sure. But at this point, it looks like we might have a bit of a profit within May as well. So that's what's really great. So I was talking about needing to stay on top of all of your job statuses. So you can actually do that just, well, either by clicking on the job itself or coming underneath here to the jobs. Also on your projects page, you'll see that January through April has already been set in a status of invoiced. You've invoiced the client, it has been paid. You're currently working on May, so the May job is still open, and everything from June to December is currently on hold, waiting for you to open it so that you may work on it. So once May is done, easily just click into May, change the status from open to invoiced. You can come back to the project directly through the breadcrumb here, under Jobs, back to June, and change June from on hold to open. So now you know which job to invoice for the coming month. Again, going by Add New, Add Invoice, invoicing by your estimated amount, producing that invoice, having them pay it, allowing your staff to track time to this now, and being able to go back into the project details at any point into the job financials to see the health of this retainer overall. Something else I also like to point out is just at this bottom line here, this will give the health of the entire retainer at a year. So for the entire year, we expect to spend 240 hours on this retainer with a profit of $24,000. At only a few months in, we're already at 102 hours, and with how much we've invoiced at $10,000 with a loss of $590. So this is just a nice overall health for the entire year, while also still being able to view each month individually. All right, Mark, is there anything that you would like to add, or is there any other good questions that you think would be really beneficial to show at this time?
Yeah, there's actually a couple things, and I just realized I haven't been muted for the last little while, so there was a bit of an echo coming through. I apologize about that. So there's a couple things. One, there was a really good question that came in, and that was, should on hold, the status of on hold, be set as an alias of open? And Sophie, maybe you can actually go into the admin section and go into list maintenance, and we can take a look at what that's referring to. Perfect. So what you'll see here is we have this status called on hold, and it's a custom status. You can of course create as many job statuses as you want. I'm usually of the mind that less is more. Keep it simple as best you can. Create what you need, but don't have in there what you don't need. Now we have it as an alias of canceled, and it's important that you want it to be an alias of canceled or closed, so that the on hold status is not being considered active. If it's considered active, so something, well, like open, for example, then people can track time against it. And if you were to do a job find and say, show me everything that's active, or do a task find for all active jobs or anything like that, or even financial reports, whatever, then all those on-hold jobs for the entire year are going to be included in those lists. And if you have 20 different retainers that you're managing, or 200 different retainers you're managing, that could be a very large amount. So it's very important that the on-hold status is an alias of canceled. So that's pretty straightforward. Now, the other thing that I want to touch on by a couple of requests is talking about billing of overages. And I think, as opposed to, Sophie, you and I kind of playing almost like a phone tag on this, I think what I might do is actually kind of take over and go over some examples and just run through a couple. So the concept of billing overages is going to work differently for different scenarios. And this is something, I actually just had a session with an agency this morning talking about their retainers, and something that we were discussing is the fact that retainers are so different for so many different agencies. Sometimes people will tell me, okay, well, if we have a retainer for $2,000, if we spend $1,700 worth of work, we're going to bill them $2,000. But if we spend $2,300 worth of work, we're going to bill them $2,000. So it doesn't really matter what it is. And other times I hear other things. So if we spend $1,700 worth of work, we're going to bill them $2,000. But if we spend $2,300 worth of work, we're going to bill them $2,300. So these are the kind of scenarios that you just need to be on top of, and perhaps have written in, say, for example, the project description, so that you can refer back to it. And also, especially if you're new to the system, you really want to pay very close attention when you're doing your invoicing for these retainers, so that you understand what you're invoicing for and why. And once you get a bit more used to the system and you've done a couple months of billing, it's all going to start to flow a little bit better for you, or a little bit easier, so that you're not having to pay attention so closely. But let's look at an example here. And let's say in this example that, let's actually back it up. So I'm going to go into June. I'm going to put this back to on hold. And I'm going to go back into May. And I'm going to put May back to open. And the reason I'm doing that is I want to track some time against it. So in this scenario I'm about to show you, we bill at the start of the month. So at the end of May, when I open up the June job, whether it's June 1st or May 31st, the first thing I do is I invoice it. And I send my client an invoice, and they get an invoice on June 1st, and it says, here's an invoice covering the SMM retainer for the month of June. So we bill in advance. If you're billing in advance, let's say that we've gone over in May. So we've gone over in May by a couple hours, and I want to make that happen so we can actually see it. So we have 12 hours against the May job. It's 30338. So I'm going to drop in a quick timesheet here into 30338 SEO, and we were at 12 hours. So let's put in I already have that in there. Sorry about that. So there's 12 hours in there. So I want to, let's say, go over about 5 hours. So I'm going to put in 13 hours. I'm going to put in 6 and let's say let's bump that up to 8 actually. I wanted 13, so let's put another 5 in here. Okay, so if we now refresh our job, or refresh our project, and look at our job financials, notice how we've now gone over. So we've gone over, and Sophie pointed something out, actually. Good eye, Sophie, on spotting this. The reason that some of the numbers are a little bit different is in our system we have different rates for different staff. So Sophie's rate is slightly higher than $100 an hour in the system, and that's why it's not going up by an even $100. So good eye on spotting that. But let's say, in this case, we've gone over by, $560. So if I want to invoice this as I create the invoice at the start of the month for an extra $560, the easiest way to do this, well, as Sophie mentioned, first of all, we would of course, change our retainer, our May retainer job to invoiced. We would then look at our June retainer job and set it to open. And the simplest way is going to be, when we take our first step and add an invoice, we're just going to adjust the value from 2,000 to 2,560. That's actually one more zero than I wanted. There we go. So I'm just manually adjusting the value. Now, if your retainer structure has a whole bunch of line items, you have a whole bunch of different line items, a lot of services with the values mixed up amongst it, you're going to need to decide how it is you want to, how it is that you want to break up that dollar value, that extra amount that you're putting in. But I'm just manually adjusting the value so that I'm adding that $560 in there. That's the scenario if we're billing in advance. Now, the agency I was speaking with this morning was actually doing the opposite. So they bill at the end of the month for all of the work that had been done in that month that had just passed. In their scenario, they bill at the end of the month for the agreed upon amount regardless of what they spend. So it doesn't matter if they spend $50,000 or $100. They bill the agreed upon $2,000. Let's say in this scenario that we bill at the end of the month, and we want to bill for the amount that we put in, including the overages. And one thing I want to mention is that, in my opinion, that is not a retainer. That is a time and materials job with an agreed upon target. If you're just billing based on the value of your time, and that fluctuates every month, it's not really a retainer. It's just time and materials, and you have an agreed upon target that you worked out with the client. And I don't mean that in a negative way. A lot of agencies would love to be able to bill for every hour they put in. But anyway, so if that's the scenario, let's kind of back it up a little bit. This invoice for May, let's say that it didn't exist. So let's just isolate May here and look at it specifically. And let's ignore what we did there for a second for June. So May, 20 hours estimated, $2,000. We've put in 25 hours, coming up to 2,560. We haven't invoiced anything because in our scenario that we're talking about now, we bill at the end of the month. So now we want to invoice, in this case, all 2,560. So all we would do is choose to add an invoice for May and select actuals. And that's going to auto-generate an invoice for our 2,560. So, it kind of depends on your scenario. There isn't really a specific answer to this question that covers all scenarios. It really just depends on how you're operating. And then, to add another wrench into this, it also depends if you are working in this kind of simple retainer style, this simple retainer where you have just a dollar amount for each month, and it's more like a professional services retainer. If you have something like a quote-unquote robust retainer with multiple sub-deliverables all included, then how you invoice those overages is going to be a little bit different. Maybe we'll cover that in just a minute, but most likely it's just going to be manually adjusting the value of the invoice when you create it. But those are some of the different options. I hope that helped. There is actually one other question that came in as a response to that, and that was, so you really can't show what overage on the invoice was from? And that's a good question as well, because it really depends. So, for example, if you are billing at the end of the month for all of the time that was spent, then it's really easy to have the system generate an invoice that automatically includes a report that shows all the timesheets and their values. If you're billing at the start of the month for the previous month, then you'd probably want to pull up a timesheet report for that month and then attach it to your invoice, because that invoice isn't going to relate to those timesheets automatically because it's a separate job. It's about generating that timesheet report. Another option is, of course, just typing it in the description, and I see that a lot. Especially, sometimes I'll talk with agencies and they'll be like, yeah, well, we're going to bill, X amount per month unless, the client's brother stubbed his toe on the second Tuesday, in which case we're going to bill this amount. You know, it's like all these kind of wacky scenarios that is the reality of working in a creative agency. You know, all these different client scenarios you have to come up with, or the clients come up with really, that you have to deal with. A lot of the times you just got to put that in the description, because there may not be a perfect report the system's going to generate to cover those types of things. So I think what we're going to do from here is I'm going to pass it back over to Sophie, so we can kind of keep chugging along. I'm seeing more questions popping in, so I'm going to try to answer those via the text box, and then Sophie, if you can maybe check back with me in a little bit. But why don't we move on and let's get into the robust retainers.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for that, Mark. You know, it's always really interesting hearing direct examples from clients, especially, you know, ones you've talked to as early as this morning. So,
yeah,
you know,
sure.
everyone is different. Just because we have found that these are the easiest ways to set up these retainers within the system doesn't mean there isn't a better way for your company specifically. So, you know, we're happy to work with you on that to make sure that everything's set up for you. But yeah, so the simple ones, although we call them simple, I'm sure there's always a way for someone to make it more difficult for everyone. So
I do apologize, because there's a couple of comments that popped in here, and I want to address them really quick, because they're good points. They're good points. Sorry, Sophie. I'm a terrible co-presenter.
You know what? We know you love the sound of your voice, so keep going.
Might be true. Okay, so there was one comment around you could do 2 invoices, one for June retainer and one for May overage. That's totally fine as well, if you want to do that. You know, I see no problem with that. If you want to include it in one invoice, that might be easier, but there's nothing wrong with sending 2 invoices. And that actually relates to the next point that came up. Thank you, Brandy, for this. The question/comment is, we bill overage quarterly or biannually for our retainer clients. We have a specific overage billing job that we use to bill overage hours for a specific time period. The question is, do you see any problems with this process? And definitely not. You know, I think that, you know, a lot of agencies would really envy the ability to do that. It's a bit rare. I don't hear of the ability to do that very much, and it would be very nice to do so. You know, a really simple way to do that is probably exactly what you're describing, where you just have this overage job and you just look at the other jobs, see what the overages were, and then just type in the invoice amount. If you want to be really advanced with it, you could move the timesheets that were the overages from one job to the overages job, and then actually bill those timesheets. Then you're talking about a lot of manual work, though, to move those timesheets. But, you know, I mean, that's, if you want to be a bit more advanced with it, you could do that. If it was me, I'd probably just bill the job. I'd probably just, you know, manually type in the amount I want to invoice and then just send it over.
Mm-hmm. And just on a note on that, Mark, I know I've talked with clients before that actually need those timesheets, I guess you could say, captured within reporting. So some people might actually want to move those timesheets over to the overages job so that they're captured in the invoicing. Am I kind of on a right path with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's, you know, whatever works best, whatever, you know, they want to see at the end of the day is most important. Right?
All right. Well, we're definitely overcomplicating things for some of your questions coming in there. So, how about we'll move on now to our robust retainers today, and you know, keep those questions coming in. It's been fun so far. So for the robust retainers, again, this one is going to be handled in a project setting. So I've already recreated it ahead of time. We've got our Safeway retainer. So with our client Safeway, what we have here with them is a $10,000 agreement. Every month they're going to pay us that $10,000, and they can ask us for whatever work they want us to work on. So for our example today, we've got a Safeway entrance signs, we've got a Safeway flyer redesign, and a Safeway rewards website. So as they request jobs and you're either opening or closing them, they will be added into this list. However, what you'll notice here is we've got this Safeway monthly retainer at the top. This is our job that holds all of the financial information, all the financial value within it. So, you know, as we've been doing with the rest of our retainers, we've got our 100 hours that we expect to work on this on a monthly basis for our agreed upon $10,000. And what we will do is we will invoice this job directly every single month. However, you'll have all of your multiple deliverables on what you and your staff are working on, and that is where you will track time. And what this will allow you to do is to be able to compare these estimated amounts, so your 100 hours, the $10,000 that you've agreed upon with your clients, and then you'll be able to compare what you've actually spent, and of course this is combined of all of these, and it is a similar situation to that first simple retainer that we looked at, where these actuals will continue to accumulate over the year. No matter what, it will probably go over your estimated amount, so you will need to utilize these start and end dates up here. So right now you can see that from when this job did open, we've of course still got these estimated amounts. We've already spent 136 hours on this at an amount of $15,000. What we've invoiced is $2,000 so far this year, so we've actually got a profit of $5,000 so far. So that's actually pretty nice, if I do say so myself. Again, using those start and end dates to be able to filter by specific months, just to see and compare your financials for each month and if there's a profit or loss. So for this, we will take a look again at April. As you know, April was a good month. We had Easter and all that during that time. Filter by date, and you'll now be able to compare what actually happened within April. That did filter, right? Yeah, perfect. So you'll see that we spent 24 hours on the Safeway entrance sign. We spent 52 hours on the flyer redesign and 36 hours on the rewards website, coming to a total of 112 hours. So comparing that to what we had expected of 100 hours, we did go over by 12 hours, so we had a loss of $2,000. But as you're looking now at the most recent month, May 1st, so where we are right now, again, we do still have just over a week left of this month, but we're actually doing pretty well health-wise. You know, we've got estimated 100 hours. However, we've only spent 24 hours so far. So since we have already invoiced for that $10,000, as Mark was saying, in these scenarios that we have here, we are invoicing at the beginning of every month rather than the end. So we've already invoiced for that $10,000, so currently we have a profit of $7,000. But, you know, we might still work on this a little more throughout the coming month, so this could change. And it looks like all we've been working on this month is this rewards website. So probably at this point, the entrance signs and the flyer redesign are actually closed jobs, and you're not still working on them, which is definitely a possibility. So if you ever want to see what jobs are still currently being worked on compared to those that have already been closed, you again just come to your jobs tab here, and you will then see everything that is currently active within the system. So right now we're still working on those entrance signs, and we're working on that rewards website. However, the flyer redesign, it has been closed and completed. So that's always nice, I guess you could say. And at any point, if Safeway calls you up and says, hey, we really want you to work on this event for us, it's as easy as just coming up here to add new, add estimate, creating the estimate and the job, and adding it into this robust retainer. Now, the only other comment I'm going to make towards it is what you've noticed here is that we're not estimating for the hours and the dollar amounts for these deliverables that your client is asking for this retainer. So I know that, while talking to a lot of my clients, they're like, well, we still want to estimate for the hours that we expect our staff to work on for this job. So doing that will throw off this a little bit, because of course these estimated hours are going to add up at the bottom, and you're no longer going to have your nice clean 100 hours a month equaling the $10,000 that you're going to invoice for. So just for our example today, I'm going to quickly add in some hours in here. Maybe we'll just 5 5, maybe 20. And we'll head back over to that project retainer. So now you'll see that we've got that 35 estimated hours for creating these entrance signs. I'm sure it takes quite a few more hours to redo things like this. It's just for our example today. But what that is throwing off now is it's estimating us to spend 135 hours altogether. However, what we want is for that 35 hours to be a part of this 100 hours. So in a situation like this, what you'll need to do is actually utilize this what we like to call our billing job up here. So you'll need to compare this 100 hours at $10,000, and actually I'm going to filter by this month. So what you'll need to compare is, again, this 100 hours at $10,000 against the actuals at the bottom. So the 24 hours that have been spent this month, what's been invoiced, the $10,000, and then our health of that at this point. Unfortunately, it does make it difficult to use these two right here. So what you'll just, again, need to remember is use these two to compare against your actuals and the invoiced amount. Right, Mark, is there anything that I am forgetting that you would like to pipe in with, or any questions? It's always great to hear everyone else's scenarios.
Yeah, so the only thing I'd mention is, okay, so when you look at, because a common question we get, and this is why Sophie was mentioning it, is, okay, so, you know, before she made the change, before she added the hours to the entrance signs job, you know, we had, you know, as she put it, kind of that $100 hours, $10,000 at the bottom. And sometimes people are saying, okay, well, that's fine, but I need to estimate the hours for the entrance signs. So, you know, I need to put in hours in there. So the, you know, in the example that Sophie just did, she put in the 35 hours. Now, if you put in the 35 hours, you can have it fill in a dollar value, but usually what I'd recommend is not having the dollar value in there. And so if you maybe hop into the estimate, exactly, I can tell you're jumping right to where I was going. And then just in the override value, so not in the rates, but in the override value, just put in zeros and then save that. And then, yeah, jump back to the project. This is a good way to be able to have the hours estimated for all of your working jobs, but not have it affect the estimated value of the total project. Now, you're also not affecting the billable value of the timesheets that get tracked. When the time gets tracked, they're still going to have a value. You haven't adjusted anything there. You're just overriding that, you know, each of those individual jobs to have an estimated value of 0, so that you have the estimated value equal the amount that you intend to bill each month. There was another good question, and that was, what category would you call the sub-jobs under the monthly retainer? And if you could actually just select to add an estimate. And then on, yeah, that category field there, if you select that, so let's say we have retainers, time materials, and fixed price. There's two options here because this category is referring to how you bill the job. So there's two options. One is leave it blank. So for something like a PTO job where you're tracking sick and vacation time, or a retainer job, you know, one of those working jobs underneath the retainer that never gets billed because you bill the billing job, anything that you're not actually going to create an invoice for, you can either leave it blank or create a new category. And if you want to create a new category, of course, that's in list maintenance, the same area as the job status in the admin section. You can create as many categories as you want. So, you know, you can add a new category and call it non-billable or call it tracking job or something like that if you don't like blank fields. I personally don't like blank fields, so I'd probably put an alternative in there. And then there was a question, so if you could jump back to the project. And then, so there's a good question that came in around how to bill for expenses that are in addition to the retainer. And there's really kind of two options for that. The simplest option would be to add the expenses to the billing job. So you would, you know, where the Safeway monthly retainer for estimated value of $10,000. You would basically add all of the expenses that relate to this retainer to that job. That's going to be the easiest way. If you can do it that way, this can be the simplest process to invoice this thing. If you can't, the next simplest way would be to have and when I say you can't, it's usually because people say, well, no, I want my expenses separated. I don't want it in the same job as the retainer, services billing. I want it separated out. I want it in a different job. The next simplest option would be to create an expenses job, and that's often what I recommend. As the next option is, so you'd have, up at the top, you'd have Safeway monthly retainer, estimated value 10,000. Immediately below that, so the second job you open up would be your Safeway monthly retainer expenses. And that way it's going to show up really nicely on an invoice, because you're going to do a multi-job invoice, one with a retainer for 10,000, and then the next for the expenses job for all of the unbilled expenses for the previous month. That's another way that's pretty simple to manage it. However, I will often have people say to me, okay, well, no, that doesn't work for me because I need to see if the expenses were related to the flyer redesign versus the entrance signs. There's a question right now. This is, how do you recommend clocking in outside consulting time that is going towards a retainer? That kind of relates to this too. If you plan on billing it if it's included, in this case, in the $10,000, track it to the job it's related to. If you intend on billing it or any expense in addition to the retainer, then you either put it against the retainer job, put it against an expenses job, or you put it against the job it's related to. And those are going in order of complexity. If you put it against the job that it's related to, your invoicing process becomes significantly more complex because you will need to do a multi-job invoice, and you'll need to do an expense report and look at all the jobs that include expenses, and then include them in the invoice. And I think I'd actually like to show that really quickly. Sophie, what do you think? Do you think we can show that really quickly?
You know what? We've still got about 12 minutes left on everyone's time today. So it's up to you on how quickly you want to show what's coming. So.
Okay, let's go for it. Let's show this expenses concept really quickly, and we're going to wrap this up here in about 7-8 minutes. And I do want to have the opportunity to show you a preview of some of the upgrades that are coming. So, I'm going to run through this pretty quickly. Please continue to put your questions in. Anything that we don't get to today, we'll make sure to follow up. So let's go ahead. So we have job 30345. So let's go ahead and add an external expense to that really quickly. You'll notice I'm doing it in a new tab. So I'm going to choose my vendor. Doesn't really matter. I think it was 30345. So let me back it up a little bit. So in this example, if you enter all of your expenses against this retainer job, it's really simple. I'm not going to go over that. You just bill the 10,000, and then you add all the expenses that you find in there. If you add an additional job and call it the expenses tracking job, that's pretty simple too. You just do a multi-job invoice with this job, the other job, and include the expenses. If you want to slot your expenses into the job that they're related to, that's where it gets a little bit trickier, and that's what I'm going to go over. So 30345. Let's say I'm just purchasing some, printing, and I'm purchasing, 100 items at 100, or let's say like $50 a piece. So I have a $5,000 expense. Let's say there's no markup on it, so it's 5,000. Save that. My expenses entered. So what I would do when it's time to invoice for this retainer, this project, this project has a project code. Oops, sorry, I did that earlier today too. This project has a project code of S-R. Those are going to be unique values. So I'm going to do an expense find. And I'm going to look for project code S-R. And I'm going to put an expense date of May 1, May 31. And I'm going to pull up those expenses. So I'm then going to produce a PDF of that. I might customize the fields and values to have what I want. I'm going to produce a PDF of that. and I can see that the Safeway Rewards entrance signs has an expense in that month. So what I'm then going to do is when I'm invoicing my project, I am going to add an invoice from the project details page, a multi-job invoice, and it's going to be based on estimated. Add invoice. You're going to get to the page where you actually add the jobs to the invoice. So I'm going to add in my Safeway retainer. There's my $10,000. And then according to this report, I have an expense for Safeway entrance signs. So when I see that here, Safeway entrance signs, I'm going to add that in too. And then I'm going to edit it. I'm going to look at the expense. Here it is right here. And I'm going to add it in for $5,000. Save and close. So I would go through this report, and all of the expenses I find, I would add them to that invoice. Using the report and going through is a lot quicker and easier, in my opinion, than adding them all, going through them one by one, looking to see if there's an expense in there. I'm not a fan of that. So you use the report to your advantage. We now have an invoice of $15,000. That's the $10,000 retainer plus the $5,000 expense. Finish, and we can produce our client-facing version. This is a very, very simple invoice. Yours is probably more interesting. Of course, we can include more detail if we want to. But that is really a very good way of managing the expenses. If you want to put them into the jobs that they specifically relate to, you can. It's a great way of tracking it. You just need to use a report when you're doing your invoicing so that you're invoicing it properly. This is the type of thing that you can really easily get the hang of, but it does take a few rounds to really get used to it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Mark. That was, I know that I have clients ask me that one all the time. So definitely those are the three best scenarios. Either add it directly onto your billing job, which would be the best if you can, create your own job that would then show on an invoice printout for you, or making sure that you're staying on top of that and invoicing for those specific expenses from the job that you want to track it to. And then I think now that was really everything I wanted to cover today. Mark, are you ready to show us what's coming next?
Yeah, let's take a quick look at it. So, again, if you do have any questions that we weren't able to get to or you haven't typed in yet, so we basically got to most of them, please feel free to continue typing them in, and we will follow up with some answers to those. I can see there's a few people trickling off. We still have most of the crowd here today. There we go. Okay, so what I want to show is a bit of a preview of some of the things that are coming. So in the last couple webinars, I've been showing this stuff. And a few webinars back, I showed a preview of the new schedule grid. And this is it. We have since launched that schedule grid. In my opinion, it actually looks a little bit better than what we're seeing here. But there's some functionality that hasn't been released yet, such as this kind of detailed task tab. But there's some other stuff that are coming to this. Well, actually a bunch of stuff. I also showed off the new Gantt chart, which has since been launched. Now there's other functionality like drag and drop and the dependencies, which are currently being worked on and are actually pretty close, I believe, that are coming as well. But that has now been launched. Very happy about that. We've also looked a little bit at some of the preview of the new resource management functionality that hasn't launched yet, but it's coming down the pipeline. And then also in this preview that I haven't shown, that I'm showing today, is just some quick visual understandings of a new way of managing retainers. And this is something that is extremely important to us as more and more agencies are moving into more of a recurring billing model, a retainer-esque model. So we have some fantastic prototype work done. I've really enjoyed working with our product team going over this. It makes me I made a joke with one of my colleagues here. I was like foaming at the mouth. I want it so bad. I haven't seen any system managing retainers in any way as good as some of the prototypes that I've been seeing our product team coming out with. So being able, all of any kind of issue around budget overruns and things like that, are going to be communicated significantly better. The whole invoicing process is being revamped. There's a lot of really, really cool stuff there. So, we've been doing a really great job on delivering on a lot of these things, and I'm looking forward to this. This is pretty far off. You shouldn't be expecting this. You're not going to come in the office on Monday and see this type of thing. It's we have to get through all of the schedules and tasks and Gantt charts and all that stuff first. But I'm really excited about this in the future, and yeah, it's going to be really great. So keep your eyes out for those types of things. That's about it.
Okay, awesome. Well, you know what, Mark? I think I had a pretty similar reaction to you about some of that new stuff, just foaming at the mouth, and just how easy it's going to be for not only us, but for our clients to be able to run their retainers through that. So that was everything we really wanted to go over with everyone today. Again, thank you so much for joining us, especially those of you that have stuck it out till the end. If you have any questions, please continue to send them through. We will be staying on for a couple more minutes, answering anything that we can. Of course, if anything might need a little more time, please send it through and we'll reach out to you outside of the webinar. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to myself or Mark or another one of our colleagues, Daniel, here on the Success team. You can reach us at success@functionpoint.com. Try and say that 10 times fast. And again, we have recorded this webinar today, and we will be sending a follow-up email with the recording, as well as just a few other documents with tips and tricks in there to help you as a good reference while creating your retainers. So thank you again, everyone, for coming out today, and I look forward to connecting with most of you soon. Thanks. Thanks again for joining me too, Mark.
Thanks, everyone.